It was a better second half. I mean, it's tough with all the free throws they got. I thought Nards was in great position a lot of the time. She had obviously a tough assignment on Caitlin Clark, but
that right there, that is a head coach standing at a podium, fresh off getting dismantled by the most dominant player in women's basketball, and actively choosing, to talk about anything except the woman who just cooked his entire roster alive. This is the story of a league full of coaches and players who know, deep in their bones, that Caitlin Clark is simply on a different level and who will construct the most elaborate, the most creative, the most breathtaking architecture of excuses rather than just say the words out loud. And by the time we hit the 10-minute mark of this video, you are going to understand exactly why that is. You are going to understand who benefits from the narrative, who loses, and why a sold-out arena and a 26-point triple-double still somehow gets explained away as a free throw problem. My name is not important. What is important is that Caitlin Clark just dropped a 26-point triple-double on the Portland Fire, and their head coach Alex Sarama walked to that podium and gave us a masterclass in deflection. Stay with me. This is WNBA XDRA. Now let's set the scene, because context matters here. The Indiana Fever traveled to Portland and did what the Indiana Fever do when Caitlin Clark is locked in. They won, and they won convincingly. The final score put 112 points on the board for Indiana. 112. And Caitlin Clark, the asset, the money, the single most watched player in the history of this league, went out there and posted 26 points, 10 assists, and 10 rebounds. A triple-double. A complete, dominant, undeniable triple-double. I want you to sit with that number for a second. 26 points, 10 assists, 10 rebounds. That is not a good game. That is a statement. That is a player operating at a frequency that the opposition literally does not have an answer for. And the Portland Fire knew it. Their players knew it. Their coaching staff knew it. And when they walked to that podium after the game, they had a choice: tell the truth or start spinning. They chose to spin. And what's fascinating, and by fascinating I mean genuinely, jaw-droppingly infuriating, is how quickly and how confidently they did it. Let's start with Coach Alex Sarama, because Alex Sarama deserves his own dedicated segment in the Excuse Hall of Fame. The man stepped to the microphone, and within the first 30 seconds of his press conference, he was already pivoting to the free throw line disparity. Not Caitlin Clark's step back from 39 feet. Not the triple-double. Not the 112 points Indiana dropped on his team. No. Alex Sarama wanted to talk about free throws, and here is where we introduce the number that is going to follow this video like a shadow. A 34-18 disparity at the free throw line. That is the stat Alex Sarama leaned on. That is the stat he offered as the primary explanation for why his team lost. Let me be completely clear about what that means. He is saying that the reason Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever won this game is because they got to the free throw line more. Not because Caitlin Clark is better. Not because she is operating at an elite level that his defense simply cannot contain. Free throws. That is the argument. That is what he brought to the podium.
it's tough. I mean, a 34-18 disparity at the free throw line, that's also very hard to
A 34-18 disparity at the free throw line, that's also very hard to compete with. That is Alex Sarama, head coach of the Portland Fire, standing at a podium in front of reporters, looking into cameras and offering the free throw line as the reason his team lost to a 26-point triple-double. Now, I want to be fair here. I genuinely do. Because the free throw disparity is a real number. It happened. But here is the thing that Alex Sarama is very carefully not mentioning. There is a reason teams foul Caitlin Clark at the rate they do. It is because she is so good, so relentlessly skilled at getting into the paint, at drawing contact on three-point attempts, at operating at a level of efficiency that the only way to slow her down is to put your hands on her. And even then, she makes the free throws. So the argument that the free throw line explains the loss is like saying a surgeon lost a patient because the scalpel was too sharp. The scalpel is sharp because that is what makes it a scalpel. And by the way, I mean, this is the part that should make every person watching this absolutely furious. Bridget Carlton, the Portland Fire player who stepped up to that same podium, had the audacity to suggest that maybe, just maybe, the reason Caitlin Clark dropped a 26-point triple-double on them was because Portland is an expansion team that does not have multi-year chemistry yet. Let me say that again. The explanation being floated for why Caitlin Clark went for 26 and a triple-double is that Portland is new. Not that Caitlin Clark is extraordinary. Not that Indiana executed at a high level. The expansion team excuse. That is what we are working with here. It is like watching someone get struck by lightning, and instead of acknowledging that lightning is powerful, they spend 20 minutes explaining that they were standing on wet grass. The lightning did not care about your grass. Caitlin Clark did not care about your roster chemistry. She had 26 points, 10 assists, and 10 rebounds regardless. If you are finding this breakdown valuable, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We break down exactly this kind of content every single week, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Now let's stack the receipts, because this press conference was a layered, multi-excuse operation. We have already covered the free throw argument, we have already covered the expansion team argument, but Alex Sarama was not done, not even close. He then pivoted to turnovers. Portland's turnovers specifically as the central reason Indiana put 112 points on the board. And look, turnovers matter, turnovers are real. But here is what is also real. Caitlin Clark was, in Bridget Carlton's own words, and I want you to hear this, getting whatever she wanted.
This is one of those games where you look back and that's probably the biggest reason we lost the game.
That's probably the biggest reason we lost the game. 112 points. That is Bridget Carlton, a Portland Fire player, standing at the podium and admitting that 112 points is in fact a lot of points. And yes, she attributed some of that to turnovers. But what she could not bring herself to fully say, what was sitting right there, right on the tip of her tongue, was that Caitlin Clark was the engine. Caitlin Clark was the reason the Fever were in a position to score 112 in the first place. The turnovers gave them extra possessions, but it was Caitlin Clark running those possessions that turned them into points. 26 points, 10 assists, 10 rebounds. That is what happens when you give Caitlin Clark extra possessions. That is what happens when you give her any possessions. Now let's talk about the pattern here, because this is not an isolated incident. This is not one coach having a rough press conference. This is a recurring, systemic refusal to acknowledge what is happening on the court when Caitlin Clark plays. Every single time, the Fever win big. Every single time, Clark puts up a performance like this. The opposing coach finds a lane, a free throw disparity, a turnover problem, a chemistry issue, a defensive assignment they almost had right, and they drive straight down that lane rather than say the obvious thing. And what's interesting, and by interesting I mean completely predictable at this point, is that Alex Sarima spent a significant portion of his press conference praising his own defender. He told reporters that Nadia, the player assigned to guard Caitlin Clark, did a really good job. He said she was excellent. He said she played great defense. He said she was in great position. Nadia held Caitlin Clark to a 26-point triple-double. Let me say that one more time. The player Alex Sarima praised for excellent defense gave up 26 points, 10 assists, and 10 rebounds. That is the defensive performance being described as excellent. Every single person watching this needs to understand what that tells you about the level Caitlin Clark is operating at. When your best defensive effort, the effort your coach calls excellent, produces a triple-double for the opposing star, you are not dealing with a normal situation. You are dealing with something that the league has genuinely never seen before. It is like a security guard telling his boss he did an outstanding job protecting the vault right after the vault got cleaned out. The performance review does not match the result, and Alex Sarama knows it. He just cannot say it out loud. Let's talk about the pass quality argument, because this is where Alex Sarama got truly creative. He stood at that podium and said, and I am paraphrasing here but barely, that the problem was poor pass quality from his players, domino driving kick passes, bad decisions, not enough care with the ball. And look, he is not wrong that turnovers hurt Portland, but I want you to notice what is happening here. Every explanation Alex Sarama offered was about something Portland did wrong internally. Not one of those explanations was about what Indiana did right. Not one of them was about what Caitlin Clark did right. Because the moment you acknowledge what Caitlin Clark did right, you have to acknowledge that she is simply better. And that is the one thing Alex Sarama refused to do for the entire press conference. That is the pattern. That is the institutional refusal, and it is not just Alex Sarama. It is a coaching culture, a media culture, a narrative culture that has decided, consciously or unconsciously, that the correct response to Caitlin Clark dominance is to find the nearest available excuse and cling to it like a life raft. While Caitlin Clark was busy doing what she does best, filling arenas, generating highlights, and printing money for this league, the opposing coaching staff was busy doing what it does best, explaining why none of it counts. Now let's talk about the business angle, because this is where the story gets genuinely alarming. And by alarming, I mean catastrophically short-sighted. Alex Sarima himself, at the end of his press conference, almost as an afterthought, mentioned that it was a sold-out game. A sold-out game. And he said it like it was a nice little bonus, like the sellout was some kind of pleasant coincidence.
It was a sold-out game tonight with vocal fans from both teams. What's it like coaching in that sort of atmosphere?
A sold-out game with vocal fans from both teams. That is not a coincidence. That is Caitlin Clark. That is the asset walking into your building and filling every single seat. That is the economic engine of women's basketball, doing what economic engines do, generating revenue, generating attention, generating the kind of electricity that makes a regular season game feel like a playoff moment. And here is the thing that every person in that building, every executive in every front office, every coach standing at every podium should understand: that sold out arena exists because of Caitlin Clark. The cameras are there because of Caitlin Clark. The national conversation happening right now, this video you are watching right now, is happening because of Caitlin Clark. She is the commodity. She is the one draw. She is the golden goose that this league has been waiting for decades. And the response from the opposing sideline is to spend 20 minutes at a press conference explaining why the 34-18 free throw disparity was the real story of the game. Let me be completely clear, and that is not hyperbole, that is not me hyping this up, that is simply the math. The WNBA has a player right now who is doing things that have never been done in this league at this level of visibility and commercial impact. And the cultural response from opponents, from certain corners of the media, from coaches standing at podiums is to minimize, deflect, and explain away every single time. Without fail, the triple-double gets explained by the free throw line. The 112 points gets explained by turnovers. The sold-out arena gets mentioned in passing like it is a weather update. Think about what happens when a franchise player in any other sport puts up a historic performance. Think about what the conversation looks like. Think about the respect that gets paid publicly at the podium, in the press. Now compare that to Alex Sarama standing at a microphone after Caitlin Clark dropped a 26-point triple-double on his team and spending the majority of his time talking about pass quality and free throw disparities. There is a version of this where a coach walks to that podium and says, "She is the best player I have faced this year. She is special. We did not have an answer for her tonight. Full stop." That is the honest version. That is the version that actually respects the game. That is the version that, frankly, would generate even more interest in this sport, because it would confirm what every casual fan watching already suspects, that Caitlin Clark is a generational talent operating at a level that even elite professional defenders cannot contain. But that version requires a certain kind of courage, and what we got instead was a free throw line argument and a compliment for the defender who gave up the triple-double. Now here is where I want to bring in the bigger picture, because the coaching behavior we saw from Alex Sarama is not happening in a vacuum. It is happening in a league that is at a genuine crossroads. The WNBA has an asset, and by asset I mean a once-in-a-generation commercial phenomenon, and the question of how the league, its coaches, its players, and its media apparatus treat that asset will determine whether women's basketball capitalizes on this moment or squanders it. Think about any sport that has had a transcendent star. Think about what those sports did to amplify that star, to put them in the best possible light, to make the narrative as big as it could possibly be. Now think about what happens in this league when Caitlin Clark goes for 26 and a triple-double. The coach talks about free throws, the player talks about turnovers, and the sold-out arena gets a single sentence at the end of the press conference. That is a house of cards. That is a league that is building its biggest commercial moment on a foundation of institutional resistance to acknowledging what that moment actually is. And it is. And by it is, I mean this should terrify every executive in that front office. Genuinely catastrophic long-term thinking. Because here is the worst of both worlds scenario. Caitlin Clark keeps performing, the arenas keep selling out, the ratings keep moving, the commercial interest keeps building, and the narrative from the people inside the sport keeps being, well, it was the free throw line, it was the turnovers, it was the expansion team chemistry. You create a situation where the casual fan can see with their own eyes what is happening on the court, and the people who are supposed to be the authorities on the game are telling them not to trust what they see. That is how you lose an audience. That is how you take a generational opportunity and turn it into a cautionary tale. 26 points, 10 assists, 10 rebounds. That is the number. That is the performance. That is the asset delivering at the highest level in a sold-out building on a national stage. And the opposing head coach's primary takeaway was the free throw disparity. Let me tell you what the verdict is, because we have gone through the evidence, and the verdict is not complicated. Alex Serma is a professional coach who prepared his team, ran his schemes, deployed his best defender, and still watched Caitlin Clark go for a 26-point triple-double. That is not a free throw problem. That is not a turnover problem. That is not an expansion team chemistry problem. That is a Caitlin Clark problem, and by problem I mean the kind of problem every other team in this league is going to keep having until they find a way to guard someone who by every available metric cannot be guarded. Bridget Carlton stood at that podium and said 112 points is a lot of points. She is right, it is. And the reason it was 112 is sitting right there in the box score: 26 points, 10 assists, 10 rebounds. The triple-double that turned a basketball game into a statement. Here is my prediction. The next time the Fever and the Fire meet, Alex Serama is going to have a new set of explanations ready, because that is what coaches who do not have an answer for a player do. They find new explanations. New schemes that almost worked, new defensive assignments that were excellent technically, even if the numbers do not reflect it. New reasons why the free throw line, or the turnovers, or the roster construction, or the phase of the moon was the real deciding factor. And Caitlin Clark is going to keep going out there and being exactly what she is: the most dominant, the most commercially significant, the most genuinely exciting player in this league. The sold out arenas are going to keep selling out. The triple doubles are going to keep coming. And every person watching this right now already knows it. The 34-18 free throw disparity did not beat Portland. Caitlin Clark beat Portland. 26 points, 10 assists, 10 rebounds, and a foot taken off the gas in the second half, because she could have had 30 and the Fever were already up by enough that it did not matter. That is the real story of this game. And that is not hyperbole. That is not me hyping this up. That is simply what happened. Now I want to hear from you, and I want you to be completely honest in the comments. Drop your take right now. Is the excuse making from opposing coaches a sign that they genuinely believe their own arguments, or do they know exactly how good Caitlin Clark is and just refuse to say it? Believe it or don't, yes or no, drop it in the comments right now. I read every single one, and I want to see where this audience stands. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications, bell icon, all notifications, because we are dropping this kind of breakdown consistently, and you do not want to be the person who finds out about the next one a week late. And click the video on your screen right now, because we have another breakdown that connects directly to everything we just talked about, and you are going to want to see it immediately. This is WNBA X Tushri. We'll see you in the next one.
Was a better second half. I mean, it's tough with all the free throws they got. I thought Nards was in great position a lot of the time. She had obviously a tough assignment on Caitlin Clark, but it's tough. I mean, a 34-18 disparity at the free throw line, that's also very hard to compete.
This is one of those games where you look back and that's probably the biggest reason we lost the game.
It was a sold-out game tonight with vocal fans from both teams. What's it like coaching in that sort of atmosphere?